Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
First this morning, the village in Hungary that wants only white people to live there. Asotthalom is hoping to persuade Christian Europeans, including Brits, to move there, with the mayor telling us, quote, "We primarily welcome people who wouldn't like to live in a multicultural society." The mayor's banned Islamic dress and gay kissing in public. This programme can reveal that a secretive organisation linked to the former British National Party leader Nick Griffin is helping to promote the village in the UK to Christians who want to escape Islam and multiculturalism in the West. Our reporter Leslie Ashwell has been to visit Asotthalom.
Real refugees are people in Western Europe who live in a multicultural society where, for instance, Muslim immigrants have become the majority.
Hungary is already seen by more and more West Europeans as a place of refuge, a place to get away from the hell that's about to break loose in Western Europe.
Asotthalom, a remote village in the southern Hungarian plains. Abandoned small holdings, testimony to an increasingly urbanised world. The village is 2 hours from Budapest, but just minutes from the Serbian border. The mayor here wants to attract new investors to bolster the declining population.
I think these empty houses need inhabitants. We're very happy when Hungarian families move into them, but we're also happy if Western Europeans settle here. I think security may be the most important attraction for them, as Asotthalom is one of the safest places to live in Europe.
Local estate agents are hoping foreigners take heed.
So how much would this be?
£9,000 to £10,000 in total,
Cheap.
including 2 hectares of land. Cheap.
But all is not as it seems. This village doesn't want just anyone. It only wants white Europeans.
We primarily welcome people from Western Europe, people who wouldn't like to live in a multicultural society. We wouldn't like to attract Muslim people in the village, even though we already have a few Muslim residents in Asotthalom. But it's very important for the village to preserve its traditions. If large numbers of Muslims arrived here, they would not be able to integrate into the Christian community in Asotthalom. We can see large Muslim communities in Western Europe that haven't been able to integrate, and we don't want to have the same experience here.
So, because the bylaws you've got in the village, I think Western Christians would feel uncomfortable with. Why do you feel those bylaws are so important?
Simply because we're defending our own traditions.
What if I was black, or what if I was gay? How would you feel about that?
Asotthalom has a bylaw that bans homosexual propaganda. We adopted it a few weeks ago. As for your other question, think about this. Europe is small. It can't take in billions of people from Africa and South Asia, where there's a population boom. This would soon lead to the disappearance of Europe. I'd like Europe to belong to Europeans, Asia to belong to Asians, and Africa to Africans. Simple as that.
He's so serious, he's introduced local legislation banning public displays of affection by gay people, the wearing of Islamic dress like the hijab, and he wants to ban the building of mosques. And his views are being pushed by a British organisation called Knights Templar International.
You can clearly see from their imagery, they're really harking back to the Crusades, when the official Knights Templar, an offshoot of the Catholic Church, fought Muslim armies for control of Jerusalem.
This organisation has no official links to the Catholic Church, but they claim they're a Christian and non-racist group. However, their anti-Muslim and anti-gay views are clear. The former leader of the British National Party, Nick Griffin, is a member, as is the former BNP treasurer, Jim Dawson. This website is advertising small holdings for sale in Asotthalom.
Hungary is already seen by more and more West Europeans as a place of refuge, a place to get away from the hell that's about to break loose in Western Europe. At the moment, Hungary is seen by the nationalists, by the patriots, by people who agree with the fence. Those people are looking at Hungary thinking, thank God for Hungary, thank God that there's someone standing up, and when it all goes terribly wrong in the West, we'll move to Hungary. Now those are the kind of people that Hungary needs.
We're pretty confident that this is the building where Knights Templar International are registered in Budapest. Certainly, pictures on their blogs, websites correspond to this building. Let's see if there's anyone at home. Hello, we're looking for Jim Dawson. Jim Dawson. Knights Templar International. Hello? Oh, I think they've left me.
We got into the building but couldn't find anyone from Knights Templar International. We asked them for an interview. They haven't responded. Nick Griffin declined.
Tulajdonképpen nincsen kapcsolatunk, és főleg nem hivatalos kapcsolatunk.
We don't have an official relationship. I've been contacted by Jim Dawson, and he came to Asotthalom a few times as a private individual, just to have a look. Nick Griffin also came with him.
Asotthalomon körülnézni, gyakorlatilag újságíróktól hallottam arról.
I heard it from journalists that the possibility to move to Asotthalom has been advertised abroad. I haven't seen any of the adverts. Still, I must say, we're very happy to welcome people from England.
The refugee crisis has contributed to the anti-immigrant sentiment sweeping Europe, like the rise of the French Front National and the Dutch Party for Freedom. Hungary is no exception.
This is the Serbian border. It's just a few miles from the village, and it's where, at the height of the migrant crisis in 2015, as many as 10,000 people a day crossed into Hungary. Opposition politicians think the mayor capitalised on the anxiety about the influx of people to introduce bylaws of questionable legality.
Igen, valószínű, hogy ő már messzebbre látott.
It's possible that with this bylaw, the mayor has looked ahead. Even though the danger of Muslims wanting to build a mosque doesn't exist at the moment, he's already preparing for the future.
Ijesztő volt tényleg.
It was really scary to see masses of migrants walking through the village. I spent a lot of time at home alone with my young kids. There were times when I was scared.
Many lawyers think the mayor's bylaws contravene the Hungarian constitution, and as part of a general review of new local legislation, the government will rule on them next week.
There are two Muslims in Asotthalom. One of them agreed to speak to us, but at the last minute pulled out. They didn't want to attract attention to themselves.
They've spoken of their fears to Hungarian media in the past, but other villagers reject the laws are a huge concern. However, they are the talk of the village pub.
The Muslim family that lives here are fully integrated with us. They don't provoke anyone. They don't wear the niqab, they don't harass people. Their young son plays football. I taught him to swim. We get on with them just fine.
There are gay people living in the village. They're absolutely fine. We meet them, we speak to them. How they live their lives at home is none of our business. We're all humans. We live together. That's it. Important issues like this should be regulated by the national government, not local legislation.
There's a problem with Muslims and their hijabs. They don't behave like Hungarians. If they take off their veil, I'll accept them. It doesn't even matter if they are black. They should become Hungarian citizens, even if they are Muslims or whatever.
Thank you.
The mayor of Asotthalom wants his village to be the vanguard in what he calls the war against Muslim culture. He's employed round-the-clock border patrols, which he thinks will appeal to European settlers. We couldn't find anyone who's come to the village as a result of Knights Templar International. But there are foreigners here. Jonathan came here from England over 4 years ago and is worried.
I'm a little saddened by it. I mean, I had a Christian upbringing myself, and some of the ideas he's saying, I personally wouldn't class as Christian ideas. And the idea that kind of one group of people is better than the other, I would disagree with that. And I know there was a lot of fear perpetrated about the migrants coming over and causing a lot of property damage and stealing things, but personally I've got little experience of that.
What do you think about Nick Griffin, the former BNP leader in the UK, also pushing homesteads in this village?
Well, I've recently just read some of Nick Griffin's previous comments about him moving to Eastern Europe and setting up almost like an enclave or a refugee kind of centre for people who coming from the UK. And having lived in areas of Derbyshire and Nottinghamshire where the BNP were quite prevalent, I would actually strongly be against that happening here.
Most villagers dismiss the idea of British extremists coming over here to farm. They think it's laughable. But one man isn't laughing, he's deadly serious. So serious, he answered our last question in English.
Are you trying to create a white kind of supremacist village?
Nem. I didn't use this word white, but because we are a white European Christian population, we want to stay this, like this. So, if we would be black, we wanted be stay black village, but this is a fact. We want to preserve this fact.
On the piece on the village in Hungary, this texter, who doesn't leave their name, says, please, you are featuring something of interest to the white working class majority. This tweet from Kristen says, I'm horrified. Let them go. At least we won't have their poisonous attitudes here. Another texter, just watching the piece on Hungary, shocking. The idea that white Christians guarantee you a better life, it's ridiculous. Paul has emailed to say this, refreshing to see a village in Hungary which is not afraid to say what it thinks and who they want to live there. Democracy seems to be dead in Europe these days. We're told what to think and slated when our views don't match those of the vociferous liberals. Why should the Hungarians conform? Why do their views not attract the respect they deserve? And one more for now. Tracy says, so their Christian town wants to expel and reject the downtrodden and suffering. Interesting. It doesn't sound very Christian to me. Well, we asked Nick Griffin to talk to us this morning, but he said no. Hungarian journalist Gergely Miklós Nagy was the first to find out about this village. Here he is.
There was a video in which the mayor of Asotthalom, László Torockai, recommend his village to the Western European citizens who want to leave the collapsed Western Europe and wants to settle down in a traditionally European culture. There was a video on the internet, which was made by the Knights Templar International. I suppose just the majority of the residents of Asotthalom don't support it. It's just my feeling.
Let's talk now to Emmanuel Coma, a professor at Trinity College Dublin, who specialises in the European far right. And also with me, Imam Atta from Tel Mama. That is an organisation that supports victims of anti-Muslim hate crime. Imam Atta, what do you think of this village and their bylaws?
Wow. One, it's concerning to see that this is happening in Europe. Two, that they're actually bypassing bylaws locally. And as some of the citizens then mentioned that they wanted something to happen on a national level. But to come with a statement to have a Christian white city and Christian white Europe is quite concerning. You have Christian blacks, you have so many communities that are Christian, as well as you have a Europe which is multicultural, which is actually strong and in its diversity and its multiculturalism, but also not allowing...
They're not interested.
Yeah, even...
They want to live with people like them.
That's one, which I think corrodes communities, corrodes community cohesion, corrodes
they think multiculturalism corrodes community cohesion.
Well, we disagree with that. I think the UK is an example of actually multiculturalism where it works. It's a best model, I think, to look at in what's happening here with multiculturalism towards Europe. But as well, when you're talking about banning the gay community and banning this and banning that. And
not banning the gay community, because gay people live there, banning public displays of affection amongst gay people.
In a way, you're allowing kind of... You're being
it's not very welcoming.
You're being homophobic. Well, you're being homophobic if you see an act like this, and that's as well promoting hatred. That is hatred towards the gay community.
Let me bring in the Professor. Good morning to you. Tell us about the rise of the far right across Europe and what you think of this as part of its, I don't know, strategy?
It's really hard to tell. What is quite obvious is that Hungary is perceived, and the Hungarian government primarily is perceived as very friendly to the anti-refugee sentiment. Eastern Europeans in general the governments in Eastern Europe have raised their voices against the EU decision to relocate refugees. But Prime Minister Orban, in particular, has been very, very vociferous in this respect. I really couldn't tell whether this is a general phenomenon. It's really odd that such a village in Hungary is trying to attract people under the idea that what really connects all these right-wing extremists is just hatred towards Muslims. They're quite a varied group, and as somebody who lived in the United Kingdom for 4 years, as a Romanian who lived in the United Kingdom for 4 years, I can tell you that people like Nick Griffin are not very fond of my people either. And by my people, I mean Eastern Europeans. So to actually live under the impression that this Christian white society can have everything in common and no contradictions, it's quite naive. And yeah. I'm referring obviously to the mayor of the village in Hungary.
Budapest is attracting a number of far-right politicians besides Nick Griffin and James Dowson. Swedish far-right leader Daniel Friberg has moved there. Is that because of the mood music from the president?
From the Prime Minister,
from the
yes.
Prime Minister, I'm sorry, yeah.
So it's not necessarily that they believe they can legally do certain things, because the things that the mayor is trying to implement cannot be legal under Hungarian or EU law. It's just that they're probably hoping that nobody's going to pursue the legality of their actions.
Yeah.
There's also a little bit of hypocrisy on part of these leaders, because they're also not fond of the very institution that allows them to live and settle in Hungary, which is the European Union. Nobody asks themselves what's going to happen when Britain is going to leave the EU. How are these guys going to be able to still live in Budapest and form these white supremacist or white Christian communities that they want to do in Hungary?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Professor Emmanuel Cohen from Trinity College, Dublin, and Imam Atta from Tel Mama. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the programme.